So a business properly set up, Matt, you should be able to run in about 90 minutes a day.
Okay.
If you're spending more than 90 minutes, you're not doing it very well.
Okay.
Okay?
Ralph, how do we get to that 90 minutes, though?
Well, I'm going to teach you. That's
Okay.
why you're here.
All right.
Okay? So I'm going to teach you now. I want to teach you about this. There are 3 M's of making money. And this is the funnest concept that there is, okay? Anthony's already heard this, okay? But there are, and we talked about this too, Millie. Yeah, okay? So there are 3 things that you need to make money. And as I evaluate business opportunities, I use this constantly. And it never fails. It's so basic and there's an area where it's quite revolutionary, okay? So let's talk about those 3 M's. So the first M is you must have in your business margin. And you don't have margin in your business yet, okay? But we're going to deal with that, okay? Now margin is this. Margin is the difference between what it costs you to produce your product and what you can sell it for. It's not all of the other advertising and office. It's almost cost of goods sold, okay? What does it cost you to develop this product or to buy it from a wholesaler, and what can you sell it for? Now, most people are very comfortable getting what's called a keystone. So if I buy this at 50 cents, I can keystone it and I'll sell it for $1. And most people are comfortable with that margin. I'm not.
That's my about
Yeah,
my
okay. It's not enough. It's not even close to being enough. There are businesses that you can be in where the margins are significantly larger than that. Where they are, I bought it for 50 cents and I sold it for $10. I bought it for $1, I sold it for $26. A loaf of bread that you will buy in a store for $3 cost the baker 10 cents to make. He marked it up to $1 and sold it to the grocery store for $1. And the grocery store marked it up to $3. That's good margin. Okay? And so one of the things you can do is get into a business that has higher margin products to sell. Okay? Marla, when you're struggling with, I'm selling time. Okay? But there's ways to increase your margins. And we're going to talk about that in a minute, okay? So margin is one of the issues that I always look for as I'm looking at a business or a business idea. Does it have significant margins? If it doesn't, I'm out of here. Okay? If it does, I'm more interested in it. The second M to making money is this. How big is the market for the product that I'm going to sell? We've talked about Derek, your market is almost geographically defined.
Correct.
Okay?
Yep.
You might do some things that are out of state, but basically it's geographically defined. Okay? With your restaurant, you're geographically limited. Okay? And so the size of your market depends upon how many people
Can go in.
live in that geographic region.
Yep.
Okay? Now, if we were doing internet stuff, then we break out of that constraint, that physical constraint.
Right.
Okay? But we may not break out into something really significant if the market that I'm aiming for is so narrowly defined that I'm selling cowboy hats or Western apparel. Very narrow. It may be big enough, but it's narrow. Okay? And so we have to say, how big is the market that I'm trying to sell to? That makes sense? That's the second M. Okay? Now the third M is the most powerful. And the third M is multiples. Do I have in my business multiples? Or when I sell something, do I have multiples? And it's a difficult concept, and we're going to spend some time thinking about this concept. Multiples is the absence of custom work. okay? If I have a business that's selling customized anything, I significantly limit the amount of that I can sell. Because I've got to produce it, especially if the customization comes from me and only from me. Okay? Now think about this. What we're doing today is increasing my multiples. I'm a teacher. And by definition, a teacher's work is custom work. Right?
Yeah.
And yet, in this class, I mean, Marla and I could sit down and I could teach Marla, and then I could sit down with Matt and teach Matt and go, but now I spent 5 times as much time. If I can get you all in one class, I've got multiples, right? You see that? I'm still doing custom work, but I'm doing it for a larger audience. What if we had 100 people in here? Then I'm still taking the time doing this, but now I've multiplied my efforts by 100. This is why people go to concerts. A concert is custom work,
Yep.
but the result is multiples. I do it once and I sell it 100 times.
Ralph, how do you balance priority between these 3 things, margin, market, and multiples?
That's a great question.
And I mean, is that custom based off where your business is and you focus more time in
I-
different places? Or?
I've got a great answer for you.
All right.
Okay? So I want you to think about this, Derek, the same way you think about how do I figure out the volume of a cube. You'll remember from business school that it is the width times the height times the depth. There are 3 dimensions, right? And I multiply those out. It's the same thing with the 3 M's of making money. I multiply them together. And because there's no numbers in this, it's this concept. If I have all 3 of these M's as small, run.
Okay.
Right? Because you can't make any money. If you've got low margins, a small market, and no multiples, you're not going to make any money. If I've got 2, if I've got 1 that's big and the other 2 are small, it's still not enough. If I've got 2 that are big and 1 that's small, I've got something. If I've got 3 that are big, it's got my interest. Does that make sense?
It does.
And so it's all this is a means by which we might evaluate whether a business idea or a business concept has legs, whether it can go somewhere. And if it doesn't, what are the problems? And can I fix those problems?
Okay, so looking internal back at my business,
Your
I say
business.
which ones are big and which ones aren't, and work on
Okay,
what's
so
not.
you've got good margins, but your margins are always going to be limited by competition
Yeah.
because you're selling common products.
Yes.
Okay? So your margins are never going to be huge, but they're going to be sufficient. Okay?
Yeah.
Your market is a good size market, and so that's good. Your multiples happen when you can sell, and you've done this recently, some companies that have just opened up a new office, and you go in there and you sell all floors.
Yep.
That's good stuff,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
That's very good stuff. And so you've got multiples in your business, but now as you look about it, you say, the means by which I can grow my business is not increasing my margin, because I can't, and it's not increasing the market because I can't, but I can increase the multiples. And if I can get more into selling larger items or more and more product to one customer in one order, then my business can really take off. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And so that's what this process is in figuring out whether or not we've got something that'll work. And I use this constantly. And if you'll use it, it'll be an easy way for you to evaluate what's wrong with my business, how can I fix it, Or is this a business I want to stay in because I'm locked into doing custom work? Custom work is the death. It's like having a job.
Sometimes it's fun, though. Sometimes it's what you like.
And if fun's what you want to do, Derek, knock yourself out again. Okay, I want you to think of it this way. Let's say I've been hired, I'm a painter, and I've been hired to paint a house. This has none of the 3 M's, right? Low margin, low market, low multiples. No multiples, because it's all me, okay? And there's no way I can systemize painting a house because every house is unique. And so being in the house painting business is the wrong place to be. It's a job or it's a self-employment, but it's never going to be a business, okay? But if someone hires me to paint a mural, it may be good, and I'll paint this mural, but I've still got no multiples because it's on the side of a building or it's, in whatever, okay? But I can develop multiples if I'll photograph that and then have it printed, and I can sell the prints. And now I can sell the prints for the rest of my life and never have to repaint the mural. And so there are ways we can get out of custom work. Now, in your restaurant business, you have multiples, but you also do a lot of custom work because almost every meal is custom. Okay, and what fast food has done is they've said we're not going to make the meal the experience. We're going to make it a commodity, and that allows us then to create multiples. A hamburger's a hamburger's a hamburger. Okay. So, but that's what I want you to do, to think about how to create multiples. Does that make sense?
Is there levels to multiples?
Yes. Very good question. That's an excellent question because that's exactly where I'm going.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
So, one of the ways to create multiples is to hire employees. Every time you hire an employee, you hire someone else to do the work you've done in the past. And hiring an employee allows you to do the work that's more profitable and that only you can do, selling new customers, developing new businesses. So you have your hiring employees as a way to increase your multiples. Okay? Another way to increase your multiples is to develop systems in your business. One of the problems we have with employees is anytime you give your employee a verbal direction, you are wasting your time. Because as soon as it escapes your lips, it's gone. And it's almost forgotten. And so what you have to do then is go back to that employee or go to other employees and give them those same verbal instructions. It's a waste of time. So what you have to do is you build a system where every employee knows exactly what's expected of them, and we don't have to keep retraining them. We just go back to the manual. This is your role. This is what you do. If you have a question, go to the manual. Don't talk to me. Go to the manual. So systems create multiples. Okay?
That also creates more employees in the event that you have to replace them. The system's already in place.
The system's already in place, and they're very easily trained at that point. Okay. Another way to create multiples is to digitize it, because you can. I mean, let's say you're selling software. I mean, making a digital copy of something is cheap and quick.
Well,
Okay.
on that note, when we pivoted in March to do digital, I went from serving people in the 9th and 9th Community Sugar House to literally serving people in other countries.
Anywhere.
Anywhere.
And now you've got multiples.
And now, yeah.
So now tell me where you want to spend your time growing your business.
On the manual, because going a little bit, being a little vulnerable.
Marla, you're great.
I-
But But you wanted to do it in multiples, in
Yeah.
digitizing what you're doing.
Yeah, yeah.
Because now there's no lid on what you can do.
Yeah.
See, now you've increased your market.
By mistake.
What?
By mistake.
But it's okay. I'd rather be lucky. Okay. Okay. You've increased your margin because digital doesn't cost you as much as live.
For sure.
You've increased your market and you've increased your multiples. Where do you want to spend your time? Doing exactly what you're doing. But now you know why.
Ralph, how would I digitize real estate? Like, because I feel like I'm still stuck into that customer because every customer is
Yeah.
different. But
Yeah.
I
So
but I have
real est-
really good margins.
Real estate has very good margin, okay?
Yeah.
But it's you or a small team.
Yeah.
And so it's not a great business. If I were you, I would say this is not a business I want to do for the rest of my life because it's me.
Which is very true. I don't want to do this.
I know
forever.
that, but you're going to learn some great skills.
Okay.
Okay, so don't worry about that yet.
Okay.
But this, as you see, this is how I evaluate businesses, and it works. When you understand multiples, when you understand market and margin and the constraints and how to get out of those constraints, it really starts to work. There's a great story about the Grateful Dead. I know none of you are Deadheads, and neither was I. But the Grateful Dead was a band, I guess, from the 70s till almost recently. Okay, and they said the way to make money as a recording band is not to sell records, not to sell CDs, because you get such a tiny little percentage of what is actually sold. But the real way to do this is to go on tour, because you get all of the ticket sales and you get all of the concession sales, which are multiples, right? And the margins are good. And it costs us the same to set up for a concert of 10,000 as it does 100,000. But with 100,000, we've got multiples, and we're going to make 10 times as much with less cost. And so they went on tour, and they toured constantly for years. That's where they made their money, and that's where they became popular. But they changed the model of what they were doing because they recognized it, even though they didn't learn it from me, the 3 M's. Okay? Margin, market, and multiples. Okay?